Most of us take medicine at some point in our lives, but have you ever really stopped to think about what happens to those medicines after we're done with them? Today, we're going to follow the secret journey of a pill, and trust me, you might be surprised where it ends up.
So, where do they go? It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's pretty complex. And honestly, it's a journey that's almost completely invisible to us. We take a pill, we feel better, but for the actual chemicals in that medicine, the adventure is often just getting started. So come on, let's follow the trail.
All right, so let's start this journey right where it begins for all of us, in our own homes. From our medicine cabinets, from our bathrooms, these substances set off on this huge, unseen trip through a system that connects us all.
It really does all begin with us. I mean, think about it. It could be the leftover medicine our bodies don't fully use, or maybe creams we wash off in the shower, or even old pills we think we're supposed to flush. No matter how, it all goes down the drain. From there, it gets mixed up in the sewer system with everything else and heads off to a wastewater treatment plant. But here's the absolute key. These plants are fantastic at their main job, treating sewage, but they were never designed to filter out the super complex chemicals in modern medicines. So what happens? A bunch of those compounds just pass right through and end up in our rivers, our lakes, and even our oceans.
So that brings us to the next big question. Once these things are out there in the environment, what are we really looking at? It's not just one or two stray chemicals. We're talking about a vast chemical mix. You could almost think of it as a kind of pharmaceutical soup.
So researchers went through studies from all across the United States, and the number they landed on is, honestly, it's pretty startling. They've found at least 93 different pharmaceuticals contaminating U.S. surface water. Just let that sink in. 93. That is a huge variety. So what exactly is in this chemical cocktail?
Well, when you break it down, what's really amazing is just how diverse it is. You can see the biggest piece of the pie is antibiotics. 27 different kinds have been found. After that, you've got antidepressants, blood pressure meds, and everyday painkillers. It's literally a reflection of our collective medicine cabinet, just all mixed together out in the wild.
Okay, so we know all these drugs are floating around out there. But here's the million-dollar question. Are they actually dangerous at these super low levels? To figure that out, scientists have a really specific tool they use to try and measure the potential harm to the ecosystem.
It's called the risk quotient, or RQ for short. The easiest way to think about it is like a dangerometer for fish and other aquatic life. Basically, scientists measure how much of a drug they actually find in the water, and then they compare that to the level that they predict would be totally safe. The ratio between those two numbers? That's your RQ score.
And when you're looking at that dangerometer, there's one magic number you're watching for, 1.0. Any drug that gets a risk quotient of 1 or higher gets a big red flag. It means the amount of it in the environment has hit or even blown past the level that's predicted to cause harm. So which drugs actually cross that line?
Well, it turns out 5 pharmaceuticals were identified as high risk. And just look at the top of this list. Triclocarbon, a disinfectant that used to be in all sorts of soaps, has an RQ score of 43. That is absolutely off the charts, 43 times higher than what's considered safe. Also on the list, you've got an antibiotic, another disinfectant, the common painkiller acetaminophen, and yep, even caffeine.
And listen, this isn't just a bunch of theoretical numbers on a spreadsheet. This is happening in the real world. This quote from a study is it's stunning. Researchers found human antidepressants in the blood of baby bull sharks. This is proof that these chemicals aren't just out there in the water, they are actively getting inside the bodies of wildlife.
So the story could end there, right? Drugs are in our rivers, they're affecting wildlife, but it doesn't. The journey doesn't stop there. In a lot of ways, it's actually making a return trip, right back to us.
Just take a look at this. It really shows how these drugs travel through the whole water system. You start with surface water, rivers and lakes, where we find 91 different drugs. That number goes down to 33 in groundwater. And by the time that water gets treated and becomes what we call finished drinking water, the number of drugs you can still find drops again to 23. It shows our treatment plants are definitely helping, but they're not a perfect shield.
So let's be really clear about what this means, because it's important. Our drinking water treatment is pretty effective. It knocks out about 75% of the different drugs. But, and this is a big but, it's not perfect. It still leaves behind 23 different compounds that can make it all the way to our kitchen taps, even if they're in super tiny amounts.
And just when you think you got the whole journey mapped out, there's another little twist. The solid stuff that gets filtered out at treatment plants is called biosolids, and often it's used as fertilizer on farms. But guess what?
A lot of these drugs stick to solid materials, so when that fertilizer is spread on fields, it can reintroduce those same chemicals right back into the environment, all ready to be washed into the water with the next big rain. It's a whole other loop.
Okay, I know this all sounds pretty grim, but here's the good news. The research doesn't just point out the problem, it also points toward a really clear path forward. There are actual concrete things we can do to start cleaning this up from a bunch of different angles.
So how do we fix this? Well, it really boils down to a three-part plan. First, you tackle it right at the source. That means teaching people not to flush pills and setting up easy-to-use drug take-back programs. Second, we get smarter with technology. We can monitor wastewater from hospitals and factories more closely, they're big sources, and we can upgrade our treatment plants. And third, and this is the really exciting one for the future, we can completely rethink the drugs themselves. We can start investing in what are called greener pharmaceuticals that are literally designed to break down safely once they've done their job.
And that really leaves us with a final, pretty mind-blowing thought. See, the whole problem starts because these medicines are designed to be incredibly stable molecules that can survive inside our bodies. So maybe the ultimate solution is also in the design. What if we could use that same incredible ingenuity that creates life-saving drugs to also make sure they just disappear when we're done with them? What if they could leave no trace behind? It's a huge challenge, but it's a fascinating one for the future of our health and the health of our planet.